Going to, there we go. All right, how's everyone doing? I'm gonna put something here in the chat. All right, guys, let me know how you guys are doing. And if everyone can see or hear me well. Great, I could see you, Bernard. That's good, that's good. How you doing, Erica? How you doing, Laura? Hey, Terry, thanks. Thank you for confirming. Awesome, awesome. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we have 27 attendees here. We're gonna let people just roll in as they come. But yeah, welcome to the first ever NJ Thrives Thursday. So I'm super excited to present to you guys today. Just a quick sort of explanation as what NJ Thrives Thursdays is. So we created it as a need. It came from the need of our small business community, right? Businesses were letting us know that they needed timely information. They needed experts on certain topics, and that's what we brought you. So every Thursday at 12 p.m., we're running this webinar, and it's basically same time, same place. So I hope you guys will join us each and every week. We're gonna have different experts, special guests, a lot of interesting stuff. So to begin, my name's Christian Pichardo. I'm marketing consultant at the NJSBDC, New Jersey Small Business Development Center. And before we start, we have a very special guest today, the NJEDA. And Maribel, I'd love if you can go ahead and start your video and basically show the people what the NJEDA is.
Sure, thank you, Christian. Thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you really from the beginning of my career with NJEDA last year. You guys were instrumental in supporting my career. So I have 23 years of experience working with the public sector. And basically, I started with New Jersey Department of Labor. And last year, once again, a little bit before the COVID-19 pandemic, I moved into NJEDA. So what is NJEDA? Basically, it's an organization that is quasi-government because we support ourselves also with the profit that we generate from our financial product. So we provide a lot of financial support to the business community. And next slide, please. So just to explain a little bit of my organization, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority serves as the state principal agency for driving the economic growth. So we are committed to making New Jersey a national model for inclusiveness and sustainability, economic development, focusing on key strategies to help build the strong and dynamic communities. Our governor is very strong in making sure that we do open the doors to the minority business owners. In fact, throughout the economic crisis, all the grants and programs, emergency loans that we have provided, 33% of these dollars have been dedicated to opportunity zones, minority-owned business owners, veterans business owner, and so on. So we're very committed. We're very dense state, as you know, right? So New Jersey is a very small state, but it's very dense in population. And we are very fortunate to have, you know, a diversity from all over the world. So It is fantastic, and we want to make sure that we deliver and we serve to each and every one of these community. And that's the reason why we also translated our application. At least they had a template to refer to before they fill out a grant application or before they fill out a small emergency loan application. So I'm thrilled to be here at NJEDA supporting the small business community and also large companies that are perhaps expanding and so on. So throughout the partnership, we diverse range of stakeholders have partnered with NJEDA also, so that we can listen to the immediate community and their needs. So right now we are creating programs, right? So we're turning the law into programs. So please keep an eye on the COVID-19 website, because although I'm gonna present, all the products that we provide to you, or a brief number of them that we provide to the business community. But also, right now the emphasis is on making sure we're keeping all these small businesses afloat and making sure their doors are open. So please visit the business.nj.gov/COVID for any program related to the economic crisis, COVID-19. Okay, this is not limited to NJEDA programs, but also NJRA, New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. Also, please keep an eye on njeda.com, because again, as we speak, we are creating new programs that will be in the market pretty soon. So please keep an eye on both websites. Next slide, please. So here's a few programs that we provide. So NJEDA can support a small business from a startup business, to a business that is growing, is expanding, needs to find a larger location. So with the micro business loan, again, we can provide up to $50,000, and we have other products that can support your business with $100, $200 to $200,000, $200 million rather. So low cost financing is what we provide. So in essence, we partner with 26 lenders to provide direct loans, loan participations and guarantees, line of credit guarantees, new micro business loan program, which I just mentioned, that's an NJEDA product, loan to lenders program, premier CDFI, community development financial institution. So this is a critical program, because the banks, these community banks, they know their community better. So that's why we want to support the local CDFIs. And also tax exempt bonding financing programs. For small business lease assistance program, I can help your business. Right now it's limited to 13 cities throughout New Jersey. And I cover the city of Patterson, Passaic, Jersey City, and Plainfield. But again, we are performing a modification on this program so that we can cover statewide. So please, that's why it's critical to keep an eye on njeda.com. Also, we provide industry-specific program. We support the technology and life science industry sector. So, we have customized resources, and we partner with other business owners who might want to sponsor these initiatives that, young entrepreneurs are trying to launch. Resources also for workshops. We provide a lot of entrepreneurship training. We partner with several institutions to provide technical training. And also, to facilitate, again, long-term solutions, such as like e-commerce, which is critical right now. So we want to make sure the business owner creates that foundation to, again, keep their doors open and also succeed, right? Post-pandemic, we want you to keep afloat, but also succeed. So it's a long-term solution that we want to provide. It's a very good support. So, NJEDA is a credible, again, organization, and it's not very well known. So please go into njeda.com if you're not familiar with our organization, and look into all the resources we can provide. Also, we partner with Business Action Center. New Jersey Business Portal is available to you, and it is business.nj.gov. So that is a very resourceful platform, because if you are starting your own business, it can really facilitate, you know, a lot of information that is critical for you to understand before you decide, I'm going to create a sole proprietorship, an LLC, a corporation. Also credentials. What credentials do I need, if I need any credentials to run my business, and so on. Also business.nj.gov. You can directly, you know, also register your business, do your business registration and certificate of business formation, and so on. So again, Christian and SBDC team, thank you once again for the opportunity, and I hope to be back with more information in the near future. Thank you for having NJEDA.
Yeah, thank you, Maribel. Thank you to the NJEDA. Amazing, amazing. So let's move on to today's event. So today, guys, we have Herb Caesar, president at CED Solutions. They provide expert assistance and strategic planning to small businesses, real estate owners, buyers, and investors. In addition, they specialize in various services like credit counseling. So that's why you're here today, is to improve your credit score. So everyone knows, at least in America, credit is everything. So you're going to learn here today some strategies and tactics to improve your credit score. So you could be able to do basically everything else that you need to do for your business, whether it's getting funding, which is probably the main thing that you're looking for. So before we get into today's event, we want to go through a little agenda we have. So our starting here is first some headlines. And I have one headline that I hope everyone knows about, and it's the restaurant revitalization. And I hope everyone can see my screen. Everyone can just confirm for me. But basically, it's the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. If you have not heard about this yet, this is created by the SBA. Applications have been open since, I believe, Monday, so the 3rd. So please make sure, if you are a restaurant, this may be very beneficial to you. Restaurants, bars, it says right here, qualifying businesses impacted by COVID-19. So again, if you're a restaurant owner, bar owner, please make sure you're taking advantage of all the resources our government is able to provide to you. So go ahead and go to SBA. Well, that's a really long URL. So how about we just Google Restaurant Revitalization Fund? You know what, I'll put it in the chat here so it's a lot easier for everyone to access. There we go. All right, so that's the headline for today. Now we're gonna get into the webinar. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Herb, the floor is yours. So you can go ahead and share the screen.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Christian.
You got it.
Okay. Welcome to everyone. Congratulations for coming. Hopefully we'll give you some, not only strategies, but also some tools that help improve your credit scores. The first slide, next slide. Well, that's what our intent is today, to how to improve your scores. We will be sharing the PowerPoint presentations for all those who are interested in it. We would like you to first give us an evaluation, and then we'll forward to the presentation to you. So you don't have to worry about print screens. Okay, next slide. That's about me, and I've been fortunate and blessed, and hopefully I can relay some of that experience I've been through to help others. Okay, now the first thing you should know is we need to know the fundamentals. Okay, in America, well, actually in New Jersey, the two things I would do, we're going to focus on New Jersey. New Jersey has 21 counties in the state of New Jersey. So you need to understand the fundamentals. And that this is the biggest myth that goes on, and that is that your business credit and your personal credit are separate. They are different, but yet very much integrated. They're joined at the hip. So you need to be able to make sure you access your personal credit and understand and be proactive. The bureaus make several mistakes, and you really need to be conscious of what the rest of the world is told about you and make sure it's accurate. But in the 5 C's, the things I want to focus on is that of character. Okay, that's just a category they use. I always use the analogy, if in fact you play chess, you can't participate unless you know how the pieces move. For those who are not chess players, then let's go with a recipe for cooking. Everybody nowadays with the pandemic, we're all learning to be chefs that we didn't know we were. So now, right? And so now, but you need to understand the recipe. The recipe says you must know these 5 things. And one of the biggest issues is, what does the rest of the world know about you? And 2, your cash flow. Okay, you may have earned the monies in a particular day, but it doesn't translate into cash until a certain time frame. You need to know that. We will also have a slide about what we call the financial statement logic and how that flows, and whether you're going to be using what source to cover what obligations in a timely fashion. Collateral is always an enhancement, as we talk about the EDA, that, you know, every institution has its level of collateral. Some don't need it, but they certainly, 99% of the time, because I go through this debate all the time, that you're going to have to put in personal guarantees. What I really believe people don't take into enough information are conditions. Okay, I talk a lot about personal credit, and the issue of your personal of your student loans. I use an example. There is a default loan fee that they will initiate in the credit cards and or in the loans if you don't pay as agreed. So you need to understand your conditions. The devil is in the details. That's what the SBDC can offer you. You can ask us to help you interpret some of the conditions or clarify for you. I am not an attorney. I am not an accountant, but I hire them and pay them a lot of money so they can educate me. Okay, so the capital is like anything else. The way they've always talked about it. They want to know you have some skin in the game. You do not want to go into a project, and I always go back to home ownership, and that's how I got into this particular aspect of my business. Home ownership, pardon me, requires that you have a down payment. Your down payment, not your closing costs, is part of your equity. You must have skin in the game, and you need to know the price, the requirements that it entails. Okay, is that pretty clear, Christian?
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Okay, this one is pretty simple. Credit is embedded with everything in life these days. I'm not against marriage. I've had some, some work, some don't. But the reality is, in this day and age, it is not uncommon for people to run a significant other or their fiance or anyone else, run their credit. Know what you're getting yourself into. So I use the terminology, your credit is your passport. Literally, you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. The mistake that a lot of people do is that they go and dispute things with the credit bureaus. The credit bureaus are not going to be able to do anything more than contact the creditor to ask whether, in fact, this is legitimate. You must deal with your creditor. Be proactive. If you have a problem and you know it's coming along, call the creditor, talk with them. They still may report you as late, but they may not trigger that default rate, and or they may be able to at least put remarks. For those who have never seen their credit report, you can put remarks about each individual trade line. And if you have an agreement, put it in writing. Have them forward to you in writing so that it can be relayed to the credit bureaus. Okay, it covers every aspect. So I could, if and when I look at a credit report, I can say I can tell where you've been, what lenders you've been with, how long you've been with them, and you'll see as we go on the presentation, there's an algorithm that is used that's relevant to how you have navigated through your credit history. Okay. So this was
And this goes, a quick question. So this goes for both personal and business.
correct. Now I'm going to
Okay.
tell you, I'll give you some tools about business, but the business one, well, let's go to the next. I think the next one will show up a little bit. Yeah, okay. You can get one free credit report, personal one, and per 12-month cycle. That's the nuance. It's not a calendar year. So if you pull your credit May of 2021 for Experian, which is going to go Experian, that's going to be the primary one we're talking about today. But there are three of them, and they're all stipulated right on this. There's three of them. Don't pull. This is my recommendation. Don't pull all three credit bureaus at one time. Go back, please. Okay. Now, during the pandemic, they have been allowing the feature of looking at your credit every week. I don't recommend that because one, there is a recording of inquiries, and two, credit is reported generally on a monthly basis. So you should run the report, find out the issues you need to go through, and then wait to see whether they'll send you a modified report, which they generally will, if you send them things that were changed or that legitimately changed or had to be removed, because they do make a lot of errors, okay? And then run another report every 4 months. So you get to cover the 12-month cycle by running a different bureau every 4 months, and then you get all the answers. There will be some difference. There may be differences between one bureau and the other because the bureaus divided up the country in a regional basis. So some creditors report to some bureaus more regularly, or in some cases exclusively to one bureau where they don't the other. When a lender looks at it, I should do the note, when a lender looks at your credit, both personal and business, they ultimately do not use just one score. They do not average the scores. The policy usually is throw out the high and throw out the low. That's why it is important that you look at all three bureaus. Okay. Another thing I should note to folks is and I always recommend, I only recommend annualcreditreport.com. If you want to have us do credit counseling with you at the SBDC, or the NJSBDC, that we in fact require you pull your own report. I will not pull anyone's report. I do not want you to forward reports to me. Credit is personal. Keep it close to your vest. Okay. But you need to understand that when you Google or do a search engine on annualcreditreport.com, it's not well optimized. Okay, for those who don't know what I'm saying or mean, is that it does not come up as the first entry. In fact, it's dropped down to almost the fifth or sixth. But you want to go to the only time you want to go is you want to go to annualcreditreport.com, and it's the home page. And the telltale sign will be always this blue box. The house changes with a glove and some other things. But what you want to look for is the only source for your free credit reports authorized by federal law. Okay, so we should be clear that yes, if you look them at today, or while we're listening, you're going to see that they'll let you run it every week. I don't recommend, and it's not highly recommended that you look at it every week. Okay, it's just not. This doesn't have that much different change. Okay, and don't be. Again, I will repeat. You need to be proactive and not reactive. Don't go into a lender unless you've looked at your report, know what's on it, make sure you've rectified it. Okay, and give an appropriate profile of yourself. As we talked about in the 5 C's, your credit, both personal and business, are in fact your financial profile. Okay, you give me a thumbs up, Christian. Any questions?
Yeah. So this is the site you would most likely
highly recommend.
If you've ever heard of these other sites like Credit Karma, things like that. Those you're saying are probably not as accurate.
Well, not numbers that they're accurate, but they don't give you the same level of detail. The devil is the devil's in the detail. Okay, and we're going to talk about the whole prioritization. Okay, and you have to be able to it's pretty friendly, user friendly. So that's what my emphasis is on. But the apps. Okay, I do not want to make any criticism on the apps, but the issue becomes the apps are better than nothing. Information is power. So having it is better than not having it. But the more detail you have, the more research you do, the better.
Absolutely.
Fair enough?
Great.
Okay,
yeah.
Moving on. Okay, this is the priority of the credit structure. The taboo of credit is judgments. What does judgments means? That the creditor has attempted to get a settlement with you, and they had to go to court and they got it adjudicated. Now, currently, the way that the credit reports, the personal credit reports primarily, they don't report judgments anymore in the personal credit reports. You must go to the superior court in the county in which you've incurred the credit. Okay, again, there's 21 counties in the state of New Jersey. So if you know you moved from Essex County, hypothetically, to Hudson to Camden, then in fact, you need to go to that superior court and you need to get the entire judgment packet. The dilemma with judgments are some of them report that you owe X dollars, or the adjudication came up and said you owe hypothetically $1,000, but they may, and you haven't addressed it for it. It may be within the body of the packet that the judge allowed them to accrue interest on it. So if you have a judgment that's out for 2 or 3 years, you may have had it. It may be much greater than $1,000 because interest has accrued on it. You have to go and get the entire packet, not just the summary. Collections are those that where you're going to get calls. Yes, they can call you at work if they have that information on you, and they generally have most information on you once they've run your credit report. They usually have your credit report in front of you before they try to settle with it. And the telltale sign is if they see you settling with other creditors and not them, you may get more calls. They can call as late as 8:30, 9 o'clock at night at home. Yes, they can call your mama or anyone else that you may have put down if you put that person on your initial application as a reference. Okay. The one that I find that is most misunderstood are charge-offs. Charge-offs are not, when an account is charged off, that does not mean it's going to go away. What it does mean is that there's an indicator that you can conceivably get a discount. And you have to know the charge-off policy now. It's post tax law versus pre-tax law. If you have a charge-off prior to 2018, then you can incur at least a 30% discount on what you owe. Again, back to my $1,000 hypothetical situation. If you had $1,000 owed, not a judgment, okay, but a charge-off, and some of them may have charged it off after or before they got the judgment. But you won't know that until you've gone to your credit report and found out what it's reported as. They're not going to tell you when they charge it off, but they do have to report it. So pre-tax law, okay, which means that you're only going to get a 20% discount. But I always use the analogy of the lottery. The older the credit, the older the collection or the charge off, the more likely they will accept a lower amount because there's a time value of money. So if in fact it's been a while and he'll come back and say, well, this happened to me when I was in college, you can have credit go to your grave with you if you do not address it. Okay, particularly because I had a personal situation where I had a parent die and there was an inheritance, and they found out about a judgment that existed that had not been officially or properly documented as a discharge. That's my obligation. I had to run up and down the state to different counties to get the necessary documentation, and then had to pay a fee to get it properly recorded. Okay. There is a cost of doing business, but it does impact, it will have a long-term positive impact for you. Delinquencies and late charges can be determined, but particularly with mortgages, they're not late until 31 days past the due date. The due date is, in fact, the first of the month. All mortgages, or I don't want to say all because everybody was telling me about the mortgage, generally because they're bundled and sold in the stock market, they all do the first of the month. The lender will give you a grace period. Sometimes it's 10 days, sometimes it's 15 days, and then you have to pay a fee. You can conceivably get them to waive the fee, but if it bills beyond that 30-day period, they're going to record you as a 30-day late, and that becomes a derogatory comment on your report. And people ask me, well, how do I know the difference between delinquency and a slow pay? Well, on your credit report, it tells me exactly what you paid that month. If you paid greater than the amount that is your regular payment, then I have to do a calculation of did your principal balance decline by that extra money, or was that extra money to pay the late fee? So there's nuances, but things that you need to understand, but it doesn't necessarily impact, well, it impacts your scores and it impacts your profile if you're a consistently slow payer.
Right. I want to give a short experience I had with a late payment, and it was on a credit card I don't use. It was of $9. I do not kid you. I don't use the credit card, so I don't look at the statement. And the $9 was there for whatever reason. And my credit score went down 30 points because obviously I forgot it went past 30 days. So after that, what I would suggest everyone to do to avoid any late payments on anything, you could set up credit card accounts to be automatically paid the minimum payment. So that's what I set up on everything.
There are two different, Christian, there's two different schools of thought on that, but
yeah,
it can work for some, but you need to monitor that as well, because there are times where if the account doesn't account for it, you could be in charged with an overdraft, and overdraft use is reported on credit reports.
Right.
The use of your overdraft is reported on your credit report and not necessarily looked very favorably on from some lenders if it's consistent. The credit.
Sorry, you would say, let's say I'm just playing devil's advocate
here.
Right. So a late payment is worse than an overdraft?
Yes. A late payment is under derogatory. It is more severely impacted than an overdraft.
Okay.
So I understand that, and that's a good question. Excellent question. The issue is that's why I went with this prioritization. What should I address first on my credit? Judgments. Okay. I should address delinquencies more before I do a slow pay. Okay. But you should note that, particularly as an entrepreneur, knowing your cash flow, because some of them, also some accounts, business checking accounts, you may get charged a fee if your minimum balance drops below a certain amount. So there's a lot of different balls you have to juggle and be conscious of, and you should have a routine of some sort for that. Okay.
Got it.
Awesome. Moving right along. Okay, this is important as to how is your credit scores calculated, and this is more personal, but it does also have the same principles. The fundamentals are the same from business to credit. That is the three that are. How do you maintain your credit, which means how do you pay it? You need to pay as agreed on a timely fashion. The faster you can pay something off, the better it will reflect for you. What is your credit experience, which is after repayment? What I know a lot of people are confused about is the credit mix. It is important to have a balancing credit mix. There are 4 types of financial vehicles, one being an installment loan versus a revolving loan. Those are the 2 major ones. Okay, the difference is that installment loan is the same payment month in and month out until you pay the loan off, either by refinancing it or paying it in entirety. If you pay an extra payment on an installment loan, you need to inform the lender to apply it to your principal so that ultimately you can save an interest. Okay, and it can accelerate the payoff. Now, in the installment loans, you can have secured installment loans and unsecured installment loans. An example of a secured installment loan is a car loan. There's collateral to it. There's some nuances. If you in fact have a car repossessed, you need to understand that it is your responsibility to determine what the car was sold for and how that impacts your outstanding balance. Most creditors will just go after you for the balance on the loan, yet they won't take into consideration what they, when they repossess the car, what they sold it for. And there's some techniques you can find. You go to motor vehicle, that's why record keeping is also extremely important. Okay, because if you have your VIN number and proof that you own the car or responsible, you can then get the information as to what it was sold for. Because you have to report what it's sold for in order they can have taxes on it. Okay, so there's a secured installment loan and unsecured installment loans. Okay, an unsecured installment loan is a student loan. And student loans are almost as impactful on your credit as are mortgages. Okay, mortgages are one of the most beneficial credit lines that you can have. But a student loan is as important. And why is it so important? Because if you should one file bankruptcy, and I don't want to go into the whole different type of bankruptcies, but there's 13, 7, and 11, okay, you cannot discharge your student loan. Not at this stage. There's some pending situations out there. I've heard of some cases where there have been individual courts that have allowed certain student loans to be discharged, but by and large, the general rule of thumb, and I'm really discussing general rules of thumb and tools to be used, is in fact that you cannot discharge that, and ultimately your estate, when you pass away, can be responsible for that balance. Okay, the revolving lines of credit is one you can use over and over again over the time frame that are given, but they too can be secured or unsecured. In a business venture or in a business vernacular, you will have there's a UCC1 filing. It can be all the assets in your business. Okay, so that determines it to be somewhat, or not somewhat, it is then secured. They can go after that without going through the process of getting a lien. That gives them that automatic lien for it. Okay, and then there is the unsecured revolving loans, which are credit cards. Those are literally unsecured. And in most cases, it's just a personal guarantee. Okay, and I've done some research lately. There are some that are claiming that there are, in fact, not credit cards that you can get with no personal guarantee. But before you qualify for that, guess what? They run your credit. They do a credit background. So they're not giving it away willy-nilly. That's my clean. Okay, the next thing that's very important in this whole algorithm is utilization. Utilization of credit is very important. Okay, you can't ask the credit card companies as to how much you should leave as a balance, because their agenda is much different than yours. And even in some of the apps, they tell you use credit cards to improve your credit scores. That's not necessarily the first thing I would recommend. Okay, but the utilization, and I have a slide for that, and there's some patterns that you need to pick up. Utilizations are in fact the balance or the ratio between your balance and your credit limit. It is amazing to me the number of times people come to me and ask for help and they have no idea what their credit limit is. So, and in fact, on some reports, it is, I'm looking at the chat. I am in there. Okay. Okay, so are you reading this? Christian?
Yeah,
Do they want,
no worries.
everyone,
we're going to take questions around the end. Okay,
moving right along. So the utilization is very important. Okay, on a installment loan, your utilization is considered to go back. Not yet. The utilization is in fact is recorded. The utilization is recorded as 100% when you have an installment loan. So the faster you pay it down, the better it reflects on your profile, i.e. your score is a reflection of your profile, but there are other nuances that go on with it. So this is the same fundamental concepts, whether it be business credit or personal credit. Now the business credit tends to have a situation where you have to pay for the report. There is no quote unquote free business credit report. There are credit reports out there. The most prominent one, and the one that is generally required when you have a SAMS and or a procurement, is Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet, though, does not go out, and most people do not report to Dun & Bradstreet unless they request it. Okay, there is a fee, but there are other programs out there. The last one I worked with was out of NJIT, which we always like to be able to give you resources. This is what it is, to give you tools that you can go and get an initial Dun & Bradstreet account for little to no cost. Okay, but over time there's a fee relating to a Dun & Bradstreet, and you must review it just like you review your personal one. That should be an ongoing routine. Okay, next slide. The other alternative is that of an Experian product. Experian is underwriting a product called IntelliScore Plus. Okay, and they have a affiliated component to it called that's why I need my facilitator, called BizSource. They're both fiduciary, or nothing. They are both predatory products by Experian. Again, there's a cost related to this. Okay, they do have a variety of different type of packages. I'm not here to sell you either one of them. I just want to give you tools to let you know that they exist, but they're a little bit different than your credit scores. I didn't mention that the traditional credit score scale runs from 350 to 850, but there are various, and that's the traditional called FICO. Okay, there are various other programs out there, one called Vantage, which runs from 550 to 990. So people come in and say, oh, my score went up, my score went up. And I say, that's an excellent thing. That's good to hear. But based on what scale? Okay, your score is only relevant to the scale. And some scales go from 300 to 800, 350 to 850. Okay, and they're like this, when we had SATs, there was a percentiles. Financial services converts it to an alphabet. Okay, if you're in the 680 divided by 850 gives you a 70 percentile, which is technically well, no, it's beside that, but technically it's about a B minus. Not a bad score, folks, but not the one that you want to aspire to. Okay, and it is a contest. It is competition. Okay, I have an athletic background, so it's always the thing that I'll fall back on and say, you must be able to compete. Conversely, this Experian source uses a different type of scale, and in this, as you can see, the higher your score, the lower your assessment. Okay, so you really want a low score. That's similarly with the Dun and Bradstreet. Okay, I don't want to slight Dun and Bradstreet. I should have put a slide for them, but this was the newest one that's out there that's very complete. Most people know about Dun and Bradstreet. A lot of people have yet to understand the Experian Biz Score and or the IntelliScore Plus.
So Herb, the business credit score range is very different from personal.
Absolutely.
And it also depends on the product that's giving you the credit score on that range that they use. So this one is using 1 to 100, but
Correct.
Another one might use a different
a different scale. Not much difference. I think that let's call it runs from 1 to 99, 96. It varies, but you need to make sure that you know what the basis in which you're being reported on. Okay.
Great.
Moving right along. Okay, this is the algorithm for credit scores, but whether business or personal. 35% of that algorithm is based on your payment history. Pay your bills on time or early. Okay, I have a issue, as I said, I brought it up, and we're not going to dwell on a dead horse. We're going to beat up a dead horse. But if you do these automatic pays, I think it comes to give people false security. I've found out that but I'm old school. Okay, I still like writing checks. Okay, but even if you do electronic payments, keep your records, because the computer tends to have its own little mysterious way of maintaining things. Record keeping is critical. So that's why I invested in a printer. But then, of course, the printer requires what? Ink. So there's a cost to things, okay? The next thing that is important, or 30% of the algorithm, is in fact your utilization rate. Okay, we have a slide on utilization, and I'll make it brief. Utilization is 30, so that's 30%. That's a pretty big slice of the pie, okay? Your relationship, the length of your credit history, is also a pretty nice chunk, but clearly not a part of that 65% of the 30 and 35. Okay, so the expression is stay with who you've been with for a while and work your relationship with that, because they will increase your credit limit if in fact you've paid as agreed. New credit reflects on inquiries. Excessive inquiries and the ability to be able to cluster inquiries is available in the state of New Jersey. For those who don't know, you can buy a car as of May of 2021 on Sunday. There are no car dealerships that can legally sell you a car on Sunday. Okay, not allowed. Similarly, in real estate, they have a 3-day rescission period. Sunday is not considered in those 3 days. Saturday is. Okay, and then back to that credit mix we talked about. They want to see a diversity and a blend of the different type of credit vehicles so that they can see how you conduct your behavior. Okay.
Right. I know for a new credit, you can, like you just said, you could cluster inquiries into a certain time frame, right? I think it's what,
it's
like
10 days. It's 10 days.
10 days, right? So you could have as many inquiries in 10 days?
For that one, this is where people make the mistake. For that one purpose. So if you're shopping around for a mortgage or an auto loan, but you can't mix them, it's like they tell you with the vaccines, don't put Moderna in with Pfizer yet. There's some new things to learn. But if you're shopping around for, I'm also a big fan of credit unions. For those who don't know, the traditional banks, most of the traditional banks don't like giving car loans on cars in excess of 3 years old. Okay, do you know the average car age in the state of New Jersey is 11 years old? And I just heard a report today from NPR or the other day where they said there's a shortage of used cars out there. And the cost of used cars have gone up by some 12%. Do your homework. Get your loan for a car in advance before you go to them, because what happens if you go to the car dealership and they run your report to different lenders to see where they can get you a car loan, it could adversely affect you. Now, in order for you to be able to counter that, I've always say you have to in credit, everything needs to be in writing. So you may have to write to before you go shopping, you need to write to the bureau, certified return receipt requested. It's a couple of dollars extra, but it really can save you in the long run, that you are shopping for that specific purpose, a car loan, and they'll give you 10 days excluding Sundays. Okay?
Great.
The little tidbits that they don't always want you to know.
Yeah, they don't. I did not know that.
Yeah, right. Moving right along. Okay, the issue too is that you're treated different depending on what percentile or echelon you're in. I like to refer to it as the echelon. If you're at the 680, you're sort of mediocre. It's a B minus. So when you have a stub of your toe, a 30-day late payment on a credit card and or on a mortgage, because I tell you, mortgages are the creme de la creme of credit. And for those who want to start a business, if they have a home or if they want to start a business, the best way to get training is to buy a home. Because if you buy a home, you should operate it like a little small business. But this chart here shows you that if you're in the 680 category, the 30-day impact may be as little as 60 points, as high as 80 points, which is still a significant one, because now you're going to go from 680 to 600. And that significantly changes it. But if you're in that 781, that may go as high as 110 points. Okay? It is hard to stay in that echelon, or in that what I refer to as the country club. That is a 780 is a country club where everybody is not necessarily available. There is a limit number. It's like any other curve. There's only a certain amount of people who can get entrance and maintain their membership. Okay, moving right along, because I know we have a time frame. Okay, this one here I still put in here because of credit utilization. It impacts both personal and business. But there is not those rates that is showing on this chart are not the utilization rates. Utilization rates are calculated by the credit balance divided by the credit limit. So that's why there's extra space in this last column. Okay, 275 divided by 500 is closer to 55%. It's certainly in excess of 50. The ideal balance, in my professional opinion, is to pay all your credit cards off in full within at least 2 months. If you can't pay off your balance and keep it zero, and I know the credit card companies tell you, well, we don't really want you to have a zero balance. Well, that's because you want to make money on me in interest. You can, if you don't use your card, go out and buy a bottle of water, okay? You can use a secured credit card is essentially what your debit card is, okay? But a little advice, don't give your PIN number to the gas station attendant. Never give your PIN number to a merchant. The only time you should use your PIN number is in the ATM, in the ATM, I call them the ATM closets, okay? Inside of network, you do not want to go outside of network, okay? Because then you may get charged a fee on both ends, okay? We're not going to name any bank, but we have an affinity for certain ones, but don't go outside of network. Don't go outside of network. So but what I want you to notice in this chart, besides the fact that we're going to calculate, or you can calculate the ultimate utilization, is that the larger your credit limit, the tendency, the rule of thumb, are there exceptions? Yes, but the rule of thumb is the greater the credit limit, the higher the interest rates. I'm not a big advocate for store cards, because store cards have usually a very high rate, 18 to 22%. And there is a usury law in New Jersey, and it's not 22%. You can go higher than that. So you need to be conscious of what your rate is, what your credit limit is, what your balance is, and what your interest rate is, and then calculate your utilization. The rule of thumb is to keep your utilization under 30%. I'm going to use 33% in this example. So people come and say, well, how can I increase my credit scores? Well, pay down your credit balances. And if you look at what you're being paid for savings, and I know people come to me all the time, I don't want to give up my cash. I feel comfortable. I feel, secure with cash. Okay, but look at what you're being paid for your cash, even if you put it in a savings account, versus what you're being charged at your credit card. And my contention is, I say I'll be fair. Take half of what you have in savings and pay down your credit balances, and then repay yourself like you were paying the credit cards.
Yeah. Okay.
So with that being said, we will ultimately then want to bring it down to under 30. So in the case of this situation here, 1,900 divided by 3,000 is in fact 63 percentile, or 63% utilization. If you pay down 900, then you can bring it down to the 32%, and you'll see a significant change in your credit. But they also want to see you maintain it that way. Doing it for 1 month is not the end of the story. It's not the resolution to things. It's not the magic, the purple pill, as they call it. Okay, it's a trend analysis. Do you keep your credits? Do you keep your balances down below that 30 to 20, 33 to 25%? Okay, but I like an account, and I'm not going to mention any business game, but I have an account that I have to pay off my balances every month in and month out, in full. Okay, and it works. Okay, I know I was told don't use the word discipline. It really turns people off. How many people do we lose when I use that word? Did we lose anybody? No, because you're smart enough to be on this broadcast. You have to discipline yourself, and the more that you're required to actually look at. I mean, I thought people told me, well, Oprah tells people, don't have anybody else sign your checks. Sign your own checks, because then you know where the money's going, and you understand how the cash flow is working. You need a reserve. If this pandemic has told us anything at all, that we need a reserve. The emergency reserve can never be enough. Okay? Moving right along, because we want to get to the questions and answers, right? Okay, there's another tool out there. FICO is putting together a tool, or is using a tool, and some lenders do, as we have told by EDA. There are the traditional lenders, there are CDFIs, there are credit unions, there are a lot of business out there, and then there's online services. They're using a thing called the resilience index. That too has a little bit different twist on their the scores. They don't use the 350 to 850, but in fact, it's sort of reverse. The lower your score, the more resilient you are, which means that your utilization is not up high. You don't fluctuate a lot with the way that you handle your affairs, because I can tell how you use your affairs when I look at your credit report. It reveals a lot of things, okay? But you must make sure it reviews accurate things. So the resilience index is another tool to help you assess not just your situation, and this is what I sort of want to bring a conclusion to. You need to do more research about the people you do business with, whether they be collaborating partners with you or customers. Because if you get desperate and go with the wrong partner, then they will cause you financial problems. So you can use this tool. You can also use the IntelliScore. look into who you're doing business with and what is their trend of operation and behavior, and see whether it's worth it. And if it finds it's a high risk, then we'd be rewarded for the level of risk you're taking. Okay. Moving right along, I think we're coming down. Oh, well, like there is. Then this is the other thing. It is imperative that, in fact, you understand your financial statement logic. Okay. If you don't understand that, then you don't know what you're doing with your cash flow. There's a cash flow statement. Okay. And the N, for those who don't know what NPAT is, that's net profit after taxes, because you gotta pay your taxes. Now, there's a kind of unique aspect about taxes. They may not report tax obligations or back taxes due on your credit reports, but you better believe if someone digs deep enough, they can find out about it. And 9 out of 10 times before I do business with someone and or collaborate with someone, I need to get in writing an authorization that allows me to run their credit and to find out what other information. So I'm also a landlord. So I ask them before they have to sign an application that authorizes me to look into all the information, to verify all the information they put on my applications. Because if they put something on and you find out it's not true, that's called fraud. And in the financial institutions can incarcerate. Well, they can charge. They can charge. You could be charged with it. Fraud is not something that you want to have on your profile. Okay, so given the time frame that they told me to live within, I think we're pretty good shape, right?
Yeah. I think this was your last slide, I believe. So I
Yep.
think, yeah, awesome. So that was some great information. Let's move into Q&A here. I'm just gonna share my screen here. All right, so I'm gonna dive into the questions and answers, and then I'm gonna ask you those questions. If you have any questions, please put in the Q&A section. I'm also gonna look in the chat if you.
Okay, well, I want to give one shout out to, well, before we do this, I have to really always compliment Vera. I bring Vera on because she's a part of the team. And your business is only as valuable as the people you have working with you. We're a team, okay? And without her, this thing would not have flowed as smoothly as it did. So thank you, Vera.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vera. So here we have one question. Bernard asks, how long does bad credit stay on your credit report?
As long as you misbehave. Okay, if you want to rectify it, okay, typically it's a trend analysis. If you go ahead and pretty it up, okay, you remember the expression, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. Okay, the
Right.
issue is if you pretty it up, they want to know, can you sustain that? Or has your behavioral pattern changed? Okay, I mean, I used to be a cigarette smoker, and I tried thousands of different times to stop, but when certain things triggered it, I went back. Until such times I was able to ultimately change the pattern for a duration of time. The short answer to this is, as long as it takes about 18 months. Okay, in a bankruptcy, if you file bankruptcy, you can only file bankruptcy every 7 years, and you will get a ton of inquiries about how the credit card companies can help you reestablish your credit. Shred them. Okay, invest in a shredder and shred them. The issue becomes you need to be able to demonstrate that your pattern of behavior has changed, and typically in a bankruptcy that they will start to consider lending to you, particularly if your credit prior to bankruptcy wasn't that severe, in about 4 years. But that's bankruptcy, that's pretty severe. Bankruptcy is not taboo. It works, but you need to get proper advice for that. There's actually the new law says you're supposed to get counseling. I find it a little unusual that you can get counseling. You have to be counseled. You have to pay for a bankruptcy counseling, but many people get the counseling from the same attorney that's going to file bankruptcy for you. Does that sound like the fox running the hen house? Okay, but you have to be licensed. Okay, you have to be licensed. The issue is, the short answer to the question is 18 months, 12 to 18 months.
Great. I have another question here from Bernice. Where do we get the Experian BIS score for the business, and is there a fee?
There is a fee, and you go into Experian business scores, but it's not the Experian credit report. It's the Experian. You'll go through or Google, because I don't want to solicit for them. Go into IntelliScore Plus, Experian IntelliScore Plus.
Awesome. All right. So I see here another question, Charmella. I've been learning up on my credit and just learned about a judgment from a creditor. I look at my report and it was never on there. Just received a letter.
Right.
Should I make arrangements to pay it off? Will it report on my credit report?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, they don't come up on personal credit reports anymore. But as she said, she got a letter. Okay, you must go, first of all, you must go to the superior court that issued the judgment and get the entire packet. But clearly reach out to and generally it's an attorney who's handling this. Reach out to the attorney that is of record. Everything is negotiable. Okay, so depending upon what's on that, that's the type of thing where I'm going to say, perhaps you might want to reach out for me at the SBDC and we can further discuss it. Okay, I also probably should have said in our ground rules that we really don't want to talk about our personal credit here and now because it's just that private. Okay, or we can just say we have a question, we won't refer to who the question is from. However you want to handle it, but you know, I usually play the game like Jeopardy. I know somebody who has a judgment. So the answer is go to the superior court in which the judgment was issued, and that's where you were probably originally incurred the credit. There are again 21 counties in the state of New Jersey. And I also tell people, if you really want to maintain your credit sound and stellar, I like the word stellar credit, is make sure you get change of addresses. Okay? File a change of address so that things are sent to you in a timely fashion. Okay, so with that being said, go get the fault, but before you contact them, go get the entire packet to understand and how you can ultimately negotiate with them, because it may be where you can actually have another hearing. You may be able to go in front of another judge.
Awesome.
Because if they didn't properly notify you, there's issues. But find out what you can do before you retain an attorney for yourself. But in some cases, you may just have to retain an attorney to get this thing settled. But for the most part, you don't have to.
Perfect. So we're over 5 minutes. I want to do a little bit of rapid fire because we do have more questions that I like to get answered, if that's okay with you, Herb.
Well, I have a gift for gab, but
so let's try to do some rapid fire and then we could close out. There's only, let's see, 4 more questions here. So Dantisa asks, does the credit app mess with your credit score if you check every week?
No, because there are different types of inquiries. It's not considered a hard hit. No. So the quick question, the answer is no. But make sure when you do pull your report, you pull the entire report, or I always recommend print out the entire report, because then I can tell who has been looking into your credit. But that's considered a promotional inquiry, and that does not hurt your score. There are 2 other types of inquiries that will.
Got it. So Dr. Carlene asks, how many days before your statement date should you pay your bill so that you could improve your credit score?
Paying early doesn't necessarily improve your credit score. Getting the balance down is. It's not a function of just pay. But I always tell people, try and pay at least a week in advance because of the issues we're having with the post office, or if you're doing it electronically, just keep your records. But it's not a function of when you pay make your payment. It's just the amount that you make your payment. Pay down as much as you possibly can each month, but clearly before the due date.
Yeah, everything, right? Everything before the due date.
Absolutely.
Great. So we have here 2 more questions. You mentioned, Manoj mentions or asks that in informing the credit bureau before going shopping for loans, and the analogy you gave for buying a car, do we need to inform all credit bureaus?
Yes, all 3 credit bureaus. And I recommend you send it certified receipt, return receipt requested, because that's the only way you can track that you actually did, that someone did actually put it on record.
Right, right. Now,
And another little tip about that, I know we tried to wrap
Yeah.
it. When you talk to the credit bureau, make sure you have pencil and paper with you. Note the person you spoke to. They generally do not give you their full name. It's Tom 123. But you got to ask the key question. Who's your supervisor? They may give your supervisor, they'll give the supervisor's full name. And in some cases, if you're cozy enough, they may give their home address. Okay. So get all that information and memorialize it. That the 6th of May at 1 o'clock, this is who I spoke to, and this is what I told, and then send that a certified letter with return receipt requested.
awesome.
It's a time-consuming, labor-intensive process, but it will have long-term. I mean, if you go, well, it has a long-term benefit. There's a long-term the benefit to it.
Right, right. And I mean, you're not going to go shopping around for a big loan all the time. So I think it's worth the work to make sure it's done right. So we have a last question here. So does UCC filing go away once you pay off the loan?
Yes, but it's an imperative upon you to make sure that it's discharged. Okay, your lender is not going to necessarily be all that. How can I say that? They're not going to be all that in a rush to have it be recorded. It is incumbent upon you that when you pay it off, you get the payoff documents, and then you go and get it and make sure it is discharged. File the discharge is what the word I was really looking for. They're not going to be in a rush to file stuff. But that's like anything else in credit. You have to be proactive and not reactive.
Awesome, awesome. Well, great. That's it for the Q&A. We're over about 8 minutes, so I'm glad everyone still stuck around. So thank you, Herb, for an incredible presentation. I'm going to go ahead and close out.
Can I make one last
words?
One last one. Could you please send it? We're going to send you an evaluation, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's going to get an evaluation right after this webinar. We'd love if you could fill that
out. Please. Very important, because we take them to heart and we'll make the modifications accordingly.
Awesome. Thank you, Herb. So I want to close out really quickly with this quote here, and I hope it just inspires you to do something, right? So great quote by Tony Robbins. He's huge worldwide personal coach, performance coach. He says, identify your problems, but give your power and energy to solutions. So remember, we have a finite amount of energy, and if you're focusing on what went wrong, you're not focusing on what could go right. So just a reminder to focus on solutions, not the problem. And that's pretty much it, everyone. So thank you for joining the first NJ Thrives Thursday webinar. Now, we are the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers. Keep in mind, we are located all across New Jersey. We help small businesses grow with $0 cost, expert business counseling, low to no cost training and resources, and we're powered by the SBA. So to get started, go to njsbdc.com/request counseling. Again, that's njsbdc.com/request counseling. I'm going to drop that into the chat right now. Request counseling. Open that up in another tab and make sure you get started. So again, you could speak to any of our experts after the webinars. You could always request them. So that's pretty much it, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And remember, next week we talk about what do we talk about? Let me just double check here. So protecting intellectual property for small businesses. So if you're a small business that has some concerns over intellectual property, you created an amazing recipe, you created an amazing software, but you're worried about someone stealing it. You have a great idea, it could be a design or something like that. you can protect it. So come back next week and make sure you stay updated on our site. But that's it for me. Thank you everyone for joining, and until next time.